And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So, tonight I actually have Heidi with me. We're going to be reviewing To Hell and Back, the Kane Hodder story. I cannot wait to get into this documentary review. I've been wanting to watch this review since 2017 when it was released, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this with Heidi. We actually did the Minnie and June episode. I hope that you guys check that out on the audio podcast or even on the video as well. Go on ahead, check that out whenever you can. But further ado, we're going to be reviewing To Hell and Back, the Kane Hodder story. And that's me pressing the wrong button. And hey, Heidi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And
Thanks
I
for.
just want to say welcome back to the show. It's fantastic to have you back. I had a great time reviewing Benny and June with you. And now
That
we
was
are back to talk
awesome.
about something a little different.
That was an awesome movie, and I'm glad to be back.
It's good to have you back. So, in case anybody's wondering what this is about, this is actually To Hell and Back. It's a Kane Hodder story, and this is a documentary review that we're going to be doing. This dives into not only him playing the most iconic horror character there is, Jason Voorhees. This dives into his whole entire thing whenever he burnt himself. This goes into his whole childhood. This goes into his family background. This has so many layers to it where you actually feel engaged within the whole entire documentary itself. Not only that, but it's also on YouTube for free. You guys can check that out if you guys want to. But yeah, what was your initial thoughts watching it at first?
I was excited to learn so much about him because I am in the contest of Face of Horrors. So, getting to dig deep about his background and how he started, the things that he's been through, it makes you relate a little bit more with him as a person, as an actor, as a stuntman, an author. Um, he's so talented in so many ways that you wouldn't know. Like people who are like big horror fans, they're like, "Oh, he's Jason, he's Jason." No, he's so much more. And this documentary gives you more of an understanding of how real he gets into his characters that he plays.
Right. I've never seen a horror icon or any actor give 150% of himself, even to his own fans, but only to his own fans, but also to his family and also everything he does too as an actor. It's just insane and everything too. But yeah, I just wanted to mention this. In 1965, King was being bullied in school and he would
Mhm.
never report that he was being bullied because he thought it was a sign of weakness to allow someone to do this to him. So basically, he would never report it. He would never go on ahead and do anything about that. He would just go on ahead and basically lock himself in his room and just deal with it. And then he winded up finally deciding, okay, enough's enough. He's going to go on and fight back. So what winds up happening is he winds up fighting against the bully, even though he got his ass handed to him. He still found a way to just stand up for himself, and then after that, the bullying just kind of went away after that. But what did you
But
think?
what's great about that is the fact is he had that pride to know that he could at least stand up. And a lot of people, even myself in school, can relate to being bullied or seeing other people's being bullied. And it's um what's great about it is it really brings that saying to life that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And look how strong he is, that he not only is such a iconic character, but he even did his own stunts in most of his films.
Which is amazing, by the way. And also, too, I liked how we are actually introduced to other people in this documentary, though, too, with Robert England
Mm-hmm.
in this as well. And the thing I like about it was this: how we as fans look at horror movies, though, too, and why we love them. It's like being on that roller coaster ride, and then sometimes we take things back with us as well. And that's something that I thought that was really fascinating was the fact that Robert Englund was talking about, how basically we don't face death on a regular basis or anything like that. But with horror, we do, and we take some things back with us. And I found that very interesting because it's been a long time since I've actually taken a horror movie that I've seen and take it back with me, and where it's actually in my head the whole entire time. Other than when my childhood was when I had nightmares, but that's about it. I don't have that resonated with me other than the fact I might like the movie and stuff like that. But what about for you?
Okay, so as myself being an actress, like it gives you a lot of perspective that some of the biggest movie stars, and I think this was listed in I got this out of the documentary, that some of the biggest movie stars have had their roots in horror film, and many actors made their debut in that genre, but they left. Kane Hodder stayed, and he was one to stay and become an big influential figure as Jason Voorhees. And you were talking about like when you were younger and having nightmares and stuff, and as kids we think that there's like monsters under the bed. And I was a child for up until 13 years. I was an only child, and I was kind of small, but my dad had always taught me to toughen up. But I didn't really have many friends because I was a little bit on the smaller side, and I got bullied. And you know it was just being alone, and instead of being scared, I kind of had to make friends with the monsters under my bed, you know just
Right.
to feel that I wasn't alone. And that's where I can relate a little bit to it. And I remember one time I was getting off my school bus. I just started 5th grade, and there was this girl. I can't mention her name, but she was 3 times bigger than me, and she was on the heavy set side. And she followed me all the way home up my lane. And my dad sees her coming, and she's screaming, "I'm going to kick Heidi's ass." And I thought my dad was going to come save me. And I thought he was going to tell her off, and, that'd be at the end of it. My dad didn't do that. He walked back in the house. He came out with 2 pairs of boxing gloves, placed it on the banister, and slapped $25 down and said, "I slapped $25 down on my daughter on betting on my daughter's going to kick your ass." She seen those boxing gloves, and she turned around and walked all the way home. Never bothered me since. And for whatever reason my dad did that, he put it in her head. And for that, I didn't have to fight like Kane did.
Right.
But it created that image that there is a monster inside.
Right.
And
That's
it gave
ready to
me the
be
strength to
unleashed.
fight back after that. Not physically. I mean, I had to a couple times, but you know, I was able to be a lot stronger on the inside and stand up for myself. So that's where I can relate with that.
Well, another thing too is I can relate to that because I've been bullied too, to the point where I felt very alone. I felt like at the point of too of having suicidal tendencies, not wanting to go back to school or anything like that because of that. And it got to the point where I was starting to break out with acne. It started to do a number on me, and I was like, "Well, why don't you fight back or anything?" And I would always be the type that would walk away because I'm like, well, what the hell is the point? Because every single time when I do hit somebody for harassing me or whatever, the teacher's back is turned whenever they're doing something to me. And then whenever I stand up for myself, that's when, of course, the teacher sees me and I'm in trouble. So it's
Right.
like, what the hell do I do? But there are a couple of times where I had to defend myself to get the bullies off my back. So yeah, I can actually relate to Kane on that level and having to unleash my inner self to be able to fight off those demons within my own self as well. Because it's high school was hell, and seeing Kane go through almost the same stuff that I went through is very inspiring for people who are getting bullied to the point where it's like, you know what, you're going through a little bit of a trial, but eventually it might get better if you wind up standing up for yourself and things like that too. So I definitely like that part of the documentary.
Right.
But then you also have another thing too that I wanted to point out was this: after Kane graduated from high school, he went down to Reno to see a movie being filmed called California Split. Porter was just an extra in the film, and he blew off his college classes, which gave him his itch to be an actor. So that was something that I found really interesting.
And the funny part is about that is that was the only time like he was an extra. I think it said like he wasn't an extra after that. After he blew it away so crazy that he just became a main character. And that's really
I
giving it your all. When you fall in love with something or get a niche and you're good at it and you put your all into it, bigger doors open.
Right. And I like the fact that, he was there every single day trying to learn what these actors are doing and everything. And it showed that he was passionate about what he did. It showed that he cared about what he did. And it also showed as well that he has more than just an extra. And people took
Right.
notice of that and was like, you know what, dude, I see what you're doing. We're going to pull you in and we're going to make something out of you. And he just had that willpower to just keep on going. And that's something I really like about Kane was the fact that, he's resilient. He's someone that just doesn't know when to quit. And he's also puts in 150% into everything he does.
Speaking of that, like he put 150% in that when he was interviewed by a newswoman, he wanted to do his stunt live. And boy, did he
Yep.
put more than 150% in because he was in the hospital for months when it backfired.
Yeah, here's the thing. Okay, in case anybody's tuning in or whatever, basically he was going in for an interview. The interviewer, matter of fact, they went to some location first. And, at first, Kane was not happy with the fact that there was wind blowing, the flames weren't that high or anything. So the next day, he's like, you know what? I want to go on ahead and redo this again. So what does he do? He winds up asking her to get him some of that uh, cement thing to whenever
Rubber
you burn
cement.
something. Yeah, rubber
Yes,
cement.
and
Thank
it
you.
wasn't the right kind that he's using as stunt double. She got him the wrong kind that you find in the office, which is more flammable than um, the stunt kind, which I
Right.
never knew until this documentary that there was different kinds. So, that's great to know.
Exactly, because I didn't even know that how they do the things that they do. So it was a really good, cool look behind the lens of how certain things are done. And I really found that really fascinating. And then whenever he winds up blazing himself up, the photographer is basically over there taking pictures of him as he's burning. And then she realizes, oh shit, he's burning. I need to do something.
Right.
So they hurry up, they get into her Jeep, they go over to this little paramedic place, and the paramedic place is like nobody's answering the door or anything. So they go on ahead, they go back inside the Jeep, and then they find this house, and the woman just looks at him. His skin is hanging off of him. He's very disorientated, and she's like, "Look, get inside the bathroom now, clean yourself off and everything. I'm gonna call the ambulance." And there's this little girl that's just looking up at him like, "What the hell?" And he was like hoping that the girl would not still be there whenever he got out of the bathroom. Thank God she wasn't. Otherwise, she would have been horrified. And then the ambulance winds up taking him to the burn unit.
Yeah. Let's rewind a little bit back on that. It's very important that we tell our viewers who, in case we have some younger viewers or whatever that has never experienced that. I had a daughter who experienced a burn trauma when she was really little. I left her with a babysitter and something had happened. And it's very scary to go through that. So I can only imagine, I went through it on a parent's end. I can only imagine what he went through as the victim. But we all need to know that if you're ever on fire, stop, drop, and roll, because his first reaction was to run. And that creates more of a trauma, more higher burn. and you can get hurt a lot easier. So always remember to just stop, drop, and roll. We've learned it in elementary school. It's very important to know. It's very important to remember. But when you're in that situation, your first instinct is just to run.
Exactly. But what was your idea? Oh, well, not your idea, but what did you think of the whole entire deal where you see the girl is basically looking at him with the skin falling off of him, and in that moment, I was just wondering what when you heard about that, what was your initial reaction?
Well, it set me back from when I seen that part. I instantly went back in my mind for when I got the call saying I have to get to the hospital with my daughter. She's been burned. It's not just the image, it's the smell of burning flesh. It's horrific. It's just something you can't get out of your mind. Like just thinking about it, it can trigger you to smell it, and it. I couldn't imagine for her being such a young girl to have to witness that. I'm sure she was traumatized. I'm sure she had nightmares about it. And the fact that she didn't get to see him after he was cleaned up, that could have saved her a lot of trauma too. But just seeing what she's seen, she might have thought, oh man, like there's a monster walking in my house or wherever they were, like I couldn't imagine.
Exactly. That's one thing that I couldn't even imagine myself to be able to experience that either, because I was like, okay, I all I can see is being just haunted by the fact that this man who set himself on fire, his flesh is burning, that burning flesh smell, and then she's witnessing this happening. That would scar me for life to see
Absolutely.
something like that. But I also wanted to point out too. I know that we're talking about the burning part, but I also wanted to point out a couple of other things though too. But you know, he was in this movie called California Split, and in California Split, he actually went on ahead and starred in that movie. And then after that, in 1974, a year later, he and his friend decided to go on tour to Universal Studios. And when he saw the Wild Wild West show, that's when he
He
knew that he
realized that
wanted
was
it.
it.
Right.
That was it. He wanted to be, and that's kind of I had that same reaction. That's what kind of what made me get into it. Not the Wild Wild West. I didn't get to go to Universal Studios, but I was 19 years old and I went on a family trip, a birthday trip to celebrate Davy Jones from the Monkees' 50th birthday.
Mm.
And my dad lived with him and my sister and I lived with him on, part-time on the weekends during the whole custody battle. So when Davey went to Florida to celebrate his birthday, because we were on the Teen Idols tour, he was on the Teen Idols tour, but we traveled with him because my dad was his go man. So we got the opportunity to go along, and walking through Disney, we had a camera guy. We always called him Butterface, and it's because of a joke he made. So the camera guy, we just for the whole time called him Butterface, and he followed us along on the documentary of being in Disney, and I was seeing people's reactions. And one of the things is my little sister at the time, she was only 5 years old, and she was taking a picture of Davy in Disney. And the funny part is I took a picture of him. And so my dad had this photo book of us taking pictures. So it's like you see the picture of her taking it and then you see the picture. But just that experience of being there and seeing the people's reactions and hearing how he talked to people and entertained them, even when he was doing something personal with his family. That's what made me say this is it. So I had the similar reaction as Kane did. He was in Universal's. I was in Disney in front of Cinderella's castle.
But to be honest with you, that could be your universal. I think everybody can have their own universal into saying, okay, this is what got me into acting. This is what got
Mhm.
me into film. So for him, it was universal. For you, it was a trip. So, I think that everybody can have their own universe that's supposedly Universal. So yeah, that's the way I look
Absolutely.
at it.
And let's
But
talk about like other things that he's not just been
well,
in for like with Jason, he's been in so many other things as well.
right, because I was just going to get to that. As a matter of fact, he was actually in a movie called in spring of 1987. He did a movie called Prison, and he was a stunt person for the film, and decided to put live worms in his mouth. And the producers and directors loved the way Kane moved in the makeup. Then the following year, Friday the 13th Part 7, John Carl Bushler was attached to direct the film. He's also the visual effects person on the film.
So I cringed at the part where he said about putting live worms in his mouth, but at the same time applauded him because that's how much he gives to his character. He, like you said, he puts in 110%. And the fact that he put live worms to get their attention, like, I mean, I want to puke thinking about it, but
Right.
but it's entertaining, and that's what makes him the best when it comes to that.
Exactly. And nobody else would have done that, to be honest with you. I think other people would actually find other substitutes or whatever, try and finagle it around.
There was a little boy I went to school with, little Johnny at the time. He's big John now, but back then in school he was little Johnny, and he used to chase us girls around on the playground when after it would rain and we'd go out for recess and there would be worms on the blacktop. He used to pick them up and chase me and his sister around, and I think that's kind of why I wouldn't when I seen him put them in his mouth, because little Johnny would, go up to us and pretend he was going to eat them, and it was just gross.
Yeah, that's something that I wouldn't do, but I commend Kane for going the extra mile for that one.
I mean,
Um,
I would go to extra mile on certain acting skills, but the worms, nah, he's got that.
right. He's got that owned. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. Um, but yeah, he also did his very first scene that Kane did in part 7 was when Michael was being stabbed by Jason. It felt natural to Hodder because that's basically what he said. He just said it just felt so natural to be in the makeup and to be able to do those movements. And so there were 6 films before Hodder played Jason. So
And
whenever
he
you got part
loved it.
7, yeah.
He loved being in that makeup. And it's hard to be in that prosthetic makeup and stuff. It can be heavy, it can be sweaty, it can be gooey feeling depending on what they're doing. But it's awesome to know like some of the things that you learn how they do the effects. It's pretty cool.
It definitely is. I mean, the visual effects alone, and then especially when you have Freddy Krueger himself talking about the makeup and the cosmetics of what they have to do for him and everything too, and he relates back over to Kane for the makeup that he did, and how great friends that they are. I just thought that was really moving to actually see these people have respect for each other and have an understanding of what they do. So I thought that was a nice thing.
Absolutely. Can we elaborate on how well Kane looks after being a burn victim?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Like
Matter
he
of fact, I
looks
was gonna. Right, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to cut. Matter of fact, I wanted to do the whole entire recovery thing though to go back to where we were
yeah,
with him being in the burnt unit and then doing the cosmetic surgeries and stuff like that. So I'll let
absolutely.
you go on ahead and talk about that.
Okay, so being in the burn unit is a very scary unit to be in. Um, because first of all, it smells, and not just because of the burn victim stench, but the stench of the how clean it has to be. It has to be very, very sanitized, and you can elaborate on Kane's doctor when you feel you're ready for that. But that it has to
Because
be very,
Kane's
very
doctor basically
sanitized.
right. Kane's doctor basically said that he was almost about to die. And all the trauma that he went through, he didn't know that he would actually recover fully either.
Right.
And he goes, and then I also liked how Kane said, "Look, you see my arm? This is like the only scratches right here." He goes, "Well," and then his skin was like a little extra tight. And the doctor said, "Well, if you're happy with it and everything, that's fine." if you can live with the tightness of your own skin. But I really like how caring his doctor was towards Kane after being away after so many years of not seeing him.
And he burnt himself that bad that he burnt the sensation of his nerve endings, that he couldn't feel that right away. And after he started healing is when he started to feel the pain.
Right.
But
He
in
went
the
through that whole
initial burn, he burned himself that bad that the nerve endings were damaged.
right, and it goes into the whole trauma of the anxieties that he went through, and there was also the OCD moments and everything too, which he said he would never be able to get recover from that or
Right.
anything, you know. But I'll let you elaborate on some more stuff though.
Okay, so there was a nurse or a doctor that had come in his one room, and because you have to be in the burn unit, you have to be very sanitary. The one doctor that came in to check on him did not sanitize his hands for some reason. And when he touched him, I guess he got what was it, a staph infection?
Yeah, he got staph infection.
Yeah. So I couldn't imagine having that on top of being burned. Like, talk about annoying. Like, it's annoying to be hurt or sick. So to have a staph infection on top of a bad injury, and he went from one unit to another place. They moved him, and I think he spent what 6 to 8 months in there.
Yeah, he spent about 6 to 8 months in there in the recovery because of the staph infection, and on top of having being a burn victim as well. That that's painful alone. Staph is no joke either.
Right.
But
And he
to
was
not
he was
be right,
he was burnt from head to toe, and he's 6'3".
yep,
That's a whole lot of burn.
yeah, and something else though too that I want to mention is this. Okay, so after all this happens, this is what happened. Summer of 1986, BJ Davis avenging it winds up offering him BJ Davis basically offers him a job for avenging force in New Orleans. He was just going to be a stunt person for the film. Well, matter of fact, for the entire film, BJ asked Kane if he would do 2 burns with him. It's surprising that Kane would be burned by fire and be burned victim and to embrace the fact that he loves doing scenes with fire. So that was just like a little side note about the fact that, if I was burnt alive, I would actually be afraid to even do that again. But he kind of like embraced the fire himself and decided to go ahead and do this. And he didn't feel forced to do it either. BJ just asked him if he would do it, and Kane said, yeah, he would.
It's kind
So
of
I like that.
it's kind of like back to that bullying mentality. He was tired of bullying. He stayed quiet about it. He stayed quiet about it. And then finally he stood up. And even though he got his ass handed to him, he wasn't scared no more. So with him being a burn victim from head to toe, um, I guess he just maybe felt like if he could survive that, you know, he's not ready to give up yet. And it's all the fight that's in him. So that's how I kind of took that. Maybe that's not how it is, but that's how I perceived it. So
That makes sense though, because of the fact that, it's like either I can let this thing defeat me or I can face it head on.
mhm.
So that's basically Kane's way. I mean, with anything he does, he always tries to face things head on. He doesn't hide from anything. He always tries to go on with full force. So that's the way I see it.
Yep. And again, like he practically lives by the rule: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right. There's also another thing I want to mention is this too, okay? So Kane has also never broken a bone during filming a stunt. Most stunt people brag about breaking their bones, while Horder feels like if you're good at something, then you shouldn't be breaking your bones, and that you're not good at, and that also means that you're not good at what you do. So
Right.
I, so I really find that fascinating because, yeah, look at Jackie Chan for example. He broke over 132 something bones in his body doing the stunts that he did, and here's Kane. I like the fact that Kane brags about not breaking a bone because it just makes us more that much enthused to be able to watch him even more and see what he does. You know?
I like the fact that he takes his weaknesses and turns it to strength. And that's kind of a good mentality to have, because some people go through a trauma like a burn victim and get depressed and use it as a crutch. And he used it as a step up. That was his step stool of making him better.
Right.
And that's really inspiring.
Really
You know,
is. It's
before
very
I
inspiring.
started this contest of Face of Horrors, to win this photo shoot with Kane Hodder, I liked scary movies, but I only liked to watch them with friends or company. I would not watch a scary movie at night and at home by myself. Uh, Not that I was punked about it, being a punk about it, but it was more interesting to have people with you. Because I went through trauma, it made me feel safe to have people around. And so when I decided to do this contest, because it's for the B Plus Foundation for pediatric cancer patients, and the fact that he gives so much to that, it's amazing for somebody that's been through so much trauma, so much bullying. He turned it into a book, many books he wrote. He's an author. So, he's just a very interesting individual that's inspiring. And you would have never thought that somebody in a horror genre like Hodder would be so inspirational.
Right. Not only inspirational, but humble.
Humble, yes. Let's talk about
His
that.
humbleness is something that I love about him. Because we talked about how he gives 150%, right, to anything he does. But to be famous and to remain humble is something rare nowadays to have.
I think it's important for actors to have that, though. That's what makes you a good actor.
And that's not only does it make you a good actor, but it also makes you very real. It makes you be able to connect with people, make them want to come back to your booth again, to be able to talk to them and to connect with your audience.
When you can be authentic like that and real and humble, see, living with Davey, he was a very humble guy. Somebody would come up and talk to him, he'd talk to them. He came to my high school concert one time, and he was a vegan. He didn't eat meat, but my school held a dinner and concert, and they served lasagna and salad. And I left my school know, hey, I have a special guest coming. He's vegan. And they made him, once they found out who it was, they made him a vegetarian lasagna. And
Oh,
my
that's cool.
family, we were sitting down eating, and my family was at this table with Davy, and a couple of the other parents came over to our table. They're like, "Are you really Davy Jones? Are you really here?" And he points over and he goes, "I think Davy, I don't know the guy, but I think he donated all that stuff for the white elephant auction for the school to build like a new gym and everything like that." And this is down in Harrisburg, okay? So I wouldn't have thought that the parents in Harrisburg would have really knew who he was. But one of the parents came over and they said, "Did you come all the way down here for the concert?" And he looked at him and he's like, I just drove down here for the salad." So, he was very humble about it. He didn't make a big deal that he was somebody famous. He just kind of tried to blend in, to come down to their level, make them smile, crack jokes. Um, and Kane was like that. Like, he's a very humble guy. And I really hope I win this contest, because I would love to meet him in person. And even though I've watched the documentary and, I was digging around in some of his books and and researching him, I just want to hear it from his own mouth, you know?
Right. Just get that little one-on-one with him to be able to connect with him a little bit, to be able to I totally get that. I really do. I really understand that. I know that we were mentioning this though too. Outside of his horror movies and stuff like that, he did get this. He did a lot of groundwork, which he was a stuntman, from
Hmm.
stuntman to actor, from actor to being a horror icon, to going now into being in an Oscar-winning movie known as the movie Monster with Charlize Theron, and
Hmm.
him doing something outside of his element, playing an undercover cop. And that was something that he wasn't used to having, as a lot of dialogue and doing something a little bit different. But at the same time, he said, okay, cop is a little bit generic, but I can actually do this, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, just like, who would have thought the man that played Jason Voorhees would be on Charmed?
Right, exactly. But I like the fact that he's not afraid to try something new,
Hmm.
and he's able to follow through with something different and to give us layers to him aside from the Jason character. And even with Mr. Crawley with Hatchet, because
Hmm.
I here's the thing, I remember checking this movie out. I had the DVD of Hatchet. Hatchet is hands down the very first one, is one of my favorite horror movies aside from Jason. And I like the over the top. I like the whole entire thing that it's not watered down with CGI and it's practical effects. And I like how Kane said, "Yeah, I made someone's mom throw up because of a scene that I did." I just cracked up laughing because of what he was able to do. But it just goes to show you how much of a great person he is, though, to be down on a certain level, to be able to relate to people, and also to be able to do what he does. And even in Monster, I thought that he did a really good job of playing the undercover cop.
I think he did an amazing job at that. Like, and like you said, with the whole putting the worms in his mouth and everything, like really getting into the role was phenomenal.
Yes. But just to know that I didn't know. Here's the thing: I didn't even know that was actually Kane Hodder playing the cop until recently. I'm like, wow, that was him, because I'm so used to him playing these iconic roles for horror movies that I was just so invested in the story. I'm like, wait, I have to go back and rewatch this. And I rewatched it. I'm like, okay, okay, I like where he's going with it, and he's just a great actor that has different layers to him. Like I said, with Mr. Crawley, not only with Mr. Crawley, but he also played the father of Mr. Crawley though too, and he was able to play a more vulnerable side to him. I thought was really good.
It is like, it amazes me and it's phenomenal when actors can be so versatile to not just one character on a show, that they can play different roles. That almost, kind of relates back to Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy. He played so many of those characters. So with Kane being able to do that, and that he can individualize each character, it's so awesome. Like,
It really is.
it's talent.
Um, he's very talented. And then I want to catch on this. I actually have this in my notes though too. But the sleeping bag scene was one of his favorite scenes to film, and it was also Kane's idea for the character to light him on fire. It was on fire for 44 seconds as well, which is crazy to think about.
Yes.
That he was on fire for 44 seconds.
With the telekinesis.
Yep, with the telekinesis part where the one of the characters has telekinesis, and then she winds up taking the fire from the fireplace and then shoots it over to where Jason is and lights him on fire. And then there's even this one other scene that was in one of the Jason's movies too. They were just going to hit him with the door, and that wouldn't have been a good reaction. I thought it just normalizes him, and it'll be very goofy for him to fall down the stairs. But
Mhm.
to make him do this, where basically you hit him with the door, and instead of him just rolling down, he just goes on and slides right back like a dead body and just
Yeah.
goes through the staircase.
Let's talk about that fall. That was kind of epic.
That's an iconic, epic one. Besides the body bag scene, which is actually one of my favorite scenes in the Jason uh, franchise, though.
I've I couldn't imagine falling down the steps like he did, because I've tripped down my steps before. and I rolled down them. So to fall like that, I can't believe even being able to survive anything like that. You know, I just know like when I missed a step and ended up rolling down, I hurt all over and I didn't want to get up. So for the fact that he does his own stunts and did that, you just gotta, you gotta give him a round of applause
Gotta
for that.
tip your hat to him, like seriously, because I'm the most clumsiest person in the world and everything too. Because I fell down my grandmother's 2 flights of stairs in Boston and stuff like that too. And yeah, it's no fun getting back up at all. I even fell off the handrails trying to slide down the handrail and
Oh my
everything.
God.
I landed yeah. So yeah, I'm the most
I
clumsiest ass person.
I as a kid, where with the house I grew up in, we used to have carpet, red shag carpet on our steps. And it was easy to slip and miss a step. And I used to take advantage of that shag carpet. And I'd get in like boxes and Macaulay Culkin it down the steps in a box. And we had a wall there. And I am lucky that I didn't break my neck. I am lucky, but I filled the box with like pillows and stuff and I guess I was just maybe practicing my own stunts at a young age and didn't realize
Right.
that. But
Well, that's what I tell my mom. I said I'm just doing my own stunts, falling, banging into shit. Yeah, that's pretty much what I tell my mom.
well, I joke about my falling a lot because I suffered ever since I was 13. I suffered from epilepsy and having seizures. And so I say if I fall, just laugh it off. I'll bounce back up. If I don't get up, that's when you worry. But if I get back up, just laugh at it. And I had taken a trip to New York with my friends um, when I was younger. And we went up to the borderline of Canada and New York. There was a pirates festival going on, and people were coming in on pirate boats. And we were walking to go see them. And for some reason, my leg gave out on me. I don't know what caused my muscle to stop working, but down I went. And I laid there for a second and I just heard my friends, they're like, "Where'd Heidi go?" And I popped back up. I'm like, "Right here." you know, so, but falls, you know, it's just sometimes you can get really hurt from them. And the fact that he's intrigued on being a stunt man and doing his own falls. And now that I'm older, if somebody asked me, "Heidi, do you want to do your own stunt where you fought?" No, absolutely not. Uh, I don't have time for that.
Same here. If I was able to have the position of being an actor, I'd like, no, I'm just gonna get a stunt double to do whatever, because I'm too old for that. But okay, so now we're gonna get into this other thing too, where basically I didn't even know this, and let's see here. It's actually Jason Goes to Hell, the final nightmare, with the ending scene where it's the most iconic scene. I always thought that Robert Englund did that scene. And then to know that Kane did it, I'm like, oh, okay. I like this.
hmm
Because I'm like, okay, this gets rid of the nostalgia of Robert Englund and puts Kane in the spotlight, and it makes me love him even more
Same.
now because he was the only one. He goes, "There's no way Robert will be able to do this. I'm going to get into the stand. I'm going to pull that mask down." And then next thing you know, you have Freddy versus Jason, which is something that my friends and I was always talking about in the night.
Epic. I remember growing up on the bus and that was always the big topic with the guys, the Freddy versus Jason and stuff. And let's just talk about a little bit. I want to elaborate on how amazing they did with those 1980s horror films versus the technology they have now. Okay? A lot of it is animated and stuff now, but the fact is it was more hands on back then when they were recording them, and it's just phenomenal to think about the big difference. I mean, yeah, you can see the difference in the movies, which is
Right.
old school versus new school.
I prefer the old school practical effects. Maybe mix them with a little CGI here and there to sprinkle it in, but not oversaturated with CGI. But I always loved the old school of making horror movies and even movies
Mhm.
in general versus the CGI stuff that we have over the years, But I like the realism. It makes us feel like that it could actually happen, and that's how good
Absolutely.
the special effects were back then.
I'm definitely like an old school person. And one thing that I enjoyed, not a lot of people know this because of me being a female, I'm actually a big, I like going to car shows and seeing old school cars. And I enjoy watching the older classical movies with those cars because, I'll be watching the movie and then I'm like an ADH kid. Do you see that car right there? Look at that.
I love going to car shows myself, and American Graffiti is probably one of my other favorite movies. That has like the old classic cars and things like that too. And then of course I love old antique cars, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Too, but I didn't even know this either though. Was Wes Craven wanted Kane to play Freddy because he was actually a burnt victim. So therefore, he's like, you know what? I want Kane to do it since he already has the scars. But then he realized, well, once Robert Englund auditioned, he's like, well, I don't really need somebody that has scars. I could just do this with the cosmetics and the visual effects, and that would be it. But I like the fact I never knew that Kane was actually in the running for that.
Right. Could you imagine though if he did play Freddy?
It'd be a whole different movie, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
because of how I'm just looking at the height of it and kids having nightmares and that big shadow standing over you and everything. Even Kane might not even have that much dialogue to play around with in the first one because he doesn't really have as much dialogue as he did in the other films. But in the first one, he didn't really have that much. But just to see him doing that glare and then him going like this, trying to lean in, that would give me creeps, to be honest with you.
I had in this contest that I'm doing with the Face of Horror, to win that contest to have that photo shoot with Kane Hodder, we get these little boxes where we get to watch these little movie clips and then we get to add a little comment section. And they were talking about Kane's one video and I said I would love to do a new take on Jason on Friday the 13th and come back as a character as Jason's daughter. And
Mm.
and they messaged me back there like that's a great idea. Like maybe you'll get to do that. And so I don't know.
That's interesting.
Even just being a part of it, I don't have to play
Well,
but the fact is just
I remember a couple of years ago, they were talking about rebooting the franchise again. And I don't know if you remember this though, Heidi, because I followed a lot of news reports back then. But I remember when they were going to go on ahead and do like a whole background of the Voorhees family
mm-hmm.
and everything. So that may not be so far fetched if if they still decide to do that or not. But I
I mean,
remember
what
just yeah.
like for instance, Hocus Pocus is the children's version of horror. Okay, but it's comical horror and it's watered down to fit children's personalities. When Hocus Pocus first came out, it didn't even make the big screen. Like it flopped. And then I think it was like 10 some
Well,
almost a decade later,
it did make
it
the big
became a big
screen.
hit.
Yeah. It made the big screen because I remember going to see it in theaters in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it didn't make that much money. As a matter of fact, like you said, it did flop. And then it became a cult classic. Is what
Yes.
it and then they made the
And
second
then
one for
like a
streaming.
couple decades later, they come back out with Hocus Pocus 2.
Right.
So I was kind of taking that thought and I was like, you can't remake classics. You can't, but you can add to it and make something old school with a little bit of new school. And that's where I kind of got the idea. Like it would be awesome if I could play that or, we could create something like that or just be a part of it in general. But I think it would kind of not that it's already in the spotlight, but how not to like say, hey, let's do this, you know?
Right. Let's see here. There's one other thing that I wanted to do before we wrap up, though, too, and then we'll get into your photo shoot thing that you want, the contest and stuff, too, so that way people can support you. And as a matter of fact, that will be in the description below where you guys can go in and vote for. I'm going to put that in after the show. But what I want to do is, okay, so Jason X in Space is basically just for the fans. It was Kane's idea to do a one shot of the body bag scene. Kane gets the script for Freddy versus Jason, but he starts getting a vibe from New Line where he was told that they hired someone else to play Jason, and even Robert Englund at that time said that it was always going to be Kane. And then it got changed over to somebody else that originally played Jason at one time. I forgot which Friday the 13th movie it was, but he was the one who played in Freddy versus Jason, not Kane Hodder. And then, of course, for 20 years, Hodder has been Jason, will always be Jason. And then Adam Green contacted Kane about doing Hatchet, and then but I also like I want to talk about the horror cons though too, where basically where people will ask him to choke them, and he'll literally choke the fans. So I just like the fact that he wants to be a lot more have like the experience of meeting him. You're muted.
I said literally hands on.
Yes, a lot of hands on. But is there anything that you wanted to add or elaborate on as far as some of the things I mentioned with Jason X or anything like that?
I really think it's important for people, so if they don't understand him, because especially if you're not big into the horror, like I wasn't at first. I'm just kind of coming into it. And that's because of the research I did. I really think people should check out some of the books that he wrote as an author. They're really like Unmasked, for one, that's talking more about him. I think what, Dead by Midnight?
Yeah, Dead by Midnight.
Yeah, there's just so many that he's done. And I think really they should check him out a little bit more because he's just brilliant.
I think so too. I think people need to give Kane um, a lot more work though too. A lot more praise, everything for the things that he's done, things that he's accomplished, and the major. To be honest with you, the transformation that he went through.
Right. There was one
With
other
his
thing
acting
that
ability.
excuse me, there was one other thing I was going to add in. I used to be a wrestling fan with my dad. I grew up sitting on the couch watching wrestling with him. And I used to think like with The Undertaker and Kane, it's if you notice or if there's any wrestling fans out there that the Kane on WWE was a burn victim and he had the name Kane too. And I thought it was because he was trying to live up to the iconic legend Kane Hodder. But I did research, and that's not the reason why. It was basically off of the Cain and Abel. So if anybody ever out there was wondering that, there's the answer to that.
Yeah. But I also would have thought that too, though, that it has something to do with being like horror related or something like that too, because of how dark it is. His character was. Same thing with the Undertaker, of course. But but my other favorite death scene in Jason X would actually be the frozen face that they mentioned and stuff like that. So that's actually one of my other favorite deaths inside Jason X. So, anyways, so tell everybody about this contest that you're in.
Okay, so I'm in this contest called Face of Horror. Right now, I made it through the first 3 different rounds, and I am had to be in the top 20, and then I made it down to the top 15, top 10, and now I'm in the top 5, but I rank in 5th place. I'm trying to make it to that first place because It's for the B Plus Foundation, and it is for pediatric cancer patients. And that kids have a big hold on my heart. I'm a mother, and like I said, I've went through some trauma things with my kids, and well, with one of them, and but it's for B Plus Foundation. I love the fact that it's for a charity. If I could make it, there's a link that you can click on Facebook, and it'll take you to where you can vote for me. There is a daily vote that's a free daily vote that you can vote every day for free, but then there's also ones where you can buy votes for me. But just the support in general, I really want to make it, because if I make it, I end up getting to do an iconic photo shoot with Kane Hodder, and it goes in Morgue Magazine. And it's really something that I just want to do. And there is a little bit of prize money that goes to it, that I am doing it for a charity. There's a lot of charities I do support. I do support, people don't know this about me, but I do support like pets, to like the local animal adoption places, so that way if they're in, that they can have the food, blankets, whatever. I donate old blankets and stuff down there to those. I support the Epilepsy Foundation because of being an epileptic. And I like to try to do a lot of fundraisers for anything with cancer. I had some family members that's dealt with cancer. So that's kind of, it pulls on my heartstrings. And with it being kids, I'm really, really trying to fight to help the B Plus Foundation. And the B Plus stands for be positive. And I'm a very positive person. With all the trauma that I've been through, I am always smiling no matter how much in pain that, and that was just my character. I would try to hide my pain and smile through it, even through being bullied and everything like that. So I think, it's for a good cause. And, the link is faceofhorror.org/2023 / my name, Heidi, Heidi D'Amelio, D'Amelio. That'll be linked in here. But please, if you are willing, log on it, click on it, find me on Facebook and find that, and please share. If you can't find me there, go into the Face of Horror page. I'll go into some of the different posts and comment my link on there. Just look for my name at the end of the link at Heidi D'Amelio. You'll see like my pictures. I have some different pictures in there. Now, a lot of my pictures that I did do digital imaging, because that's one of the reasons why I want to get this photo shoot with Kane Hodder, is I want to get to the chance to where I can have the prosthetic makeup.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I hope that you wind up winning. You deserve to win. I'm glad that you're in the top 5 over there for that. Guys, you guys can go on ahead. I'll put in, like I said, Heidi will go on ahead, send me those links out to me, and then I'll post them right after the show. So that way you guys can go on ahead and vote for her. Go on ahead. She's top 5 tier. You need to go on ahead and make her number 1. So I fully support her in doing this. So it's for a good cause. And I like the whole entire slogan of be positive, because I think we need some positivity in our lives because of the things that are going on around the world, and also around other people's lives as well. Be positive and be excellent to each other. But here's the thing. So on Monday, I will be back with Rossi. Rossi and I will be reviewing One Piece. We ended up, as a matter of fact, I binge watched the whole thing last weekend. We weren't able to go ahead and do that review over last week or this week. So next week we're going to be doing One Piece at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And that's going to be on Monday. I cannot wait to dive into One Piece, and stay tuned for more stuff that we have coming up here. We're going to be doing a Nightmare on Elm Street ranking of our favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So we're going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing that with my good friend Soda, where times are going to be determined. And then my friend Alex and I are going to be doing the very first Friday the 13th review as well. We're going to try and handle that up as well to go along with this, and also to do some extra PR for you to be able to maybe get some people to vote in for you. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it as far as the show goes. I hope everyone has a great and safe night, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.